everybody. We are live on the Secrets of Success podcast with Dr. Shawn Needham, where we are talking about all themes of never be outworked. Follow me on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn. Visit my website at drsneedham.com. Today, we have my brother, Shawn, my twin brother. Obviously, you can probably see that on the air. All right. Can you hear us?
We can hear you. Yes, loud and clear.
Excellent. Well, so I have my brother on the line, my twin brother. I actually still brag that I'm 7 minutes older than him. And so I'm always going to be his big brother. And so he's a registered pharmacist. Him and his wife, Janet Needham, actually own a pharmacy in Central Washington, and they are all things healthcare. They have their own podcast. It's all about health solutions. It's really, really good stuff. So usually what we're going to be talking about today, this is podcast episode 7 on Secrets to Success. We're going to be talking about COVID-19 and obesity. What is the real pandemic? We have a lot of data that's coming out now with testing and who is positive and who gets sick and who gets real sick from COVID-19, who dies from COVID-19, what are the chances you die, all that. Before we get into that, we usually talk about the stories of how we met. But you know what? That's not really necessary because Shawn and I met a long, long time ago when we were born. So we will skip that. We might have that on a later podcast some other day. But what I really want to welcome is Shawn, and he's going to talk about COVID-19. We're going to talk about a lot of things that we've been seeing from some data that's come out recently about COVID-19 and about health and immunity. He actually recently at his pharmacy, they actually implemented some COVID-19 testing. That was actually last week, so very, very new. And also he actually talked to the local health director in his county, and which was really interesting for me to learn more about that and what the leaders of the public and the public sector, what things that they have to think about that we're not necessarily thinking about. So without any further ado, Shawn, go to it. COVID-19 and obesity. What is the real pandemic? Welcome to the show.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you for having me on. And yeah, I believe obesity is the real pandemic and kills more Americans than COVID-19, is more dangerous than COVID-19. COVID-19 will come and go. It's like any virus. It will come and go. Obesity, unfortunately, in America will continue to kill thousands and hundreds of thousands a year. 600,000 people died last year from obesity-related disease, mostly cardiovascular disease. So we'll get into that a little bit later. But let me talk to you.
It's great, Shawn. Let me interrupt a little bit. What I want to talk to you people about is that, the guests, and I'm so thankful that this show wouldn't exist without you. Our shows have been really just doing so well because of all of not only our guests, but the producers behind the scenes. I have my son, Finland, by the way, with me today. He's doing an awesome job being my sound engineer and producer. And we are taking callers, by the way. So call in at any time. Finny will take your call. We'll put you on hold, 877-995-2111. We'd love to hear from you. Before we get going, I want to talk about this. Obesity is a difficult thing to talk about. And I'll be honest with you, it's why most in the medical professions do not talk about it. And our society has changed in this way. We don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. Neither do I. But I also know that the pandemic of obesity that we are going through right now is not sustainable in our healthcare system. I don't care who's paying for it. I'm not going to talk about politics today. I don't care if the government pays for it. I don't care if we singly pay for it or if insurance companies pay for it. It doesn't matter. It is not sustainable. Okay. And so you're going to feel a lot of different emotions for you that are watching and you that are going to watch this or hear about it. You're going to be mad. Some of you may be sad. Some of you may be embarrassed. At the end of this, I want you to feel happy that we are going to give you enough information and some facts that may deep down hurt, but are going to save lives, including possibly your own life, and really give you a better quality of life. So, please, it's okay to experience those emotions. We are not here at all to shame people. We are here to help people because we care for them. I care for my family. I care for other people. That's why I'm a coach. That's why I'm a leader. That's why I like to really, really spread the message of empowering people, educating people. Shawn talks about that and inspiring people. So Shawn, talk a little bit about how important the topic is of obesity. You were on the death rates and so on and so forth, and how many percentage of people have it, and so on and so forth. Please go.
Yeah, well, so let's first talk a little bit about the how I came to talk about this was, we've always talked in our show, Health Solutions with Shawn and Janet Needham, where we discuss everything healthcare. Our mission is to educate and empower individuals that they're in charge of their own health. And I think one thing with this COVID-19 is there's just been incredible fear created with this virus. And so people are incredibly fearful, and the government is shutting things down. And maybe at first that was a good response because we didn't know a lot about it, but there's more coming out about what we do know about it. And is the virus anything new? No. Our body's been fighting viruses for thousands of years. Now, is COVID-19 new? It's new to us. It's new because we just identified it. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's not been around for years and thousands of years. There may have been people dying from COVID-19 for thousands of years. We don't know. I know there's some conspiracy theories out there. I don't necessarily want to get into all that. I don't necessarily believe any of those. But I do know this. Our bodies have been fighting viruses like COVID-19 for thousands of years. And the best way for our body to fight them is with a strong immune system. Now, Shane mentioned we were doing COVID testing at our pharmacy. So we're a draw site for COVID antibody testing. And what is antibody testing for COVID? It basically tests the antibodies, how you would respond if you were exposed to COVID-19. I'm not going to get into a lot of the details about it, but it would show if you were exposed, and you could possibly be immune. There's no guarantees, that's for sure. But in theory, you can't get the same virus twice. I know that's a generalization, and there are exceptions to that rule. We were being proactive. We're working with Ready Medi Clinic out of East Wenatchee to be proactive in this instead of reactive, because there's some people that may have been exposed to COVID-19 and they never had symptoms. So the results are going to come out a little bit later this week. We drew a 93 test last week. It was a very, very successful. One of the things it did do, though, is it created some controversy with our local health district because they do not support antibody testing. And so I reached out to the medical director, Dr. Alexander Bresney, and I got to tell you, I respect him 100% as a doctor and 1,000% as a person. For one thing, he returned my call, and I totally respect that. And I talked to him for over an hour, and some things we do agree on, some things we don't agree on. I'm going to tell you what his position was to me as the medical director of Grant County Health District. His position is, this is the only thing I'm going to quote from him because I don't want anything to get lost, and I don't want to misquote him. So the only thing I will quote is, in some way he said this, that as the medical director of the Grant County Health District, one death is not acceptable. And he's saying that as the medical director. So I totally get that. So his position's a little bit different, and he realizes I shouldn't say different. That's his position from the Grant County Medical Director position, and I totally understand that. And it's got to be a regional response. One thing we do know about COVID is it does seem that bigger cities have been affected a lot more than smaller rural areas. And that's kind of what we're seeing here. So maybe rural areas should be treated different. Their lockdowns should be treated different than a big city. But here again, I think the important thing to know is that we just shouldn't be scared of this. I shouldn't speak for everybody, but I'm not scared of this. And somebody asked me, they said, so would you be scared if one of your family members died? And I'll just use my wife's mom. She's 80 some years old. She's in assisted living. Her health is not that great. Janet has been in contact with her about this, and she mentioned this. She said her opinion wouldn't change at all if she died of COVID-19. She's 80 some years old and she's not in great health. And it wouldn't change Janet's opinion, and it wouldn't change my opinion. And here's another thing that she said. Eventually, we are going to have to get used to the fact that eventually we are going to die of something. And if you look at the majority of people that are dying from COVID-19, they are elderly, And I'm not saying I don't love the elderly any less at all. That's not what I'm saying at all. Um, or they have comorbidities or both. And when I mean comorbidities, they have other things going on, either it be heart disease, obesity,
Well,
diabetes.
you know what, one of the comorbidity thing, we'll talk about more of those as Shawn goes on, but the majority, nearly more than 48% of the people who have died have had at least 3 comorbid conditions when they died from COVID-19. And those were diabetes, heart disease, and some others. Now, remember, what are both of those related to? Obesity. So we'll talk about that.
Correct.
So go on, Shawn, before we start talking about more of the
Yeah.
rates and some of
Yeah.
the cure rates and death
Well,
rates, exposure rates.
and here's another thing we don't know. We don't know how effective social distancing is.
No.
We can say that the 6-foot rule based on flus in the past has helped, but we don't really know that. You look at the numbers in Sweden versus Norway. Sweden basically um, quarantined the unhealthy and the elderly, and then they're going with herd immunity. And Norway, their neighbors, went with complete lockdown, and their numbers are similar as far as deaths go. So it's interesting. Here again, our bodies have been fighting viruses for thousands and thousands of years.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people would agree that if a vaccine is 12 to 18 months out, we cannot keep our economy shut down for that long. That is devastating,
Well,
not just financially, but for people's lives. I
for people's
mean, there's
lives,
a lot of things that happen, suicides, and a lot of things. Depression, things like that are
oh,
going up because of this.
no, let's
Alcoholism. We'll talk a little bit about that.
well, we can talk about that, but think about the things that are actually social distancing and the lockdown could be hurting people. There's a lot of people saying this, and here's some reasons why. Shawn talked about it. Depression. You're taking away connection and real relationships from people. Okay. You're also, their suicide rates are skyrocketing. Okay. And then there's depression. What about this? Lack of vitamin D because nobody's getting outside. They're seeing some of that now. They're seeing some people that are lacking vitamin D that Shawn can tell you all about vitamin D. We won't necessarily get into that, but it causes a whole list of issues, including depression is one of them. Is that correct, Shawn? If
Oh,
you're not
that's absolutely
sunlight?
correct. I mean,
Yeah.
I think vitamin D is probably, if there was one supplement you can take, vitamin D is the most important. And locking people inside, vitamin D is produced in our skin in response to sunlight.
Yeah.
Locking us up inside makes that worse. Also, locking us up inside, locking healthy people up inside that are quarantined with unhealthy people, you could argue it makes them worse. Now, here's another thing. Think about a little baby. How do little babies get immune from stuff? Now, if they're breastfed, the immunities are passed in breast milk, so they'll get some from their mom. But how do babies get immunities? Why do babies get sick when they're younger? They don't have any immune system yet because they don't have antibodies yet. How
Yeah.
do they do that? How do they produce antibodies?
They get exposed.
They get exposed.
That's
That's
right.
the only way they produce antibodies.
That's right.
And that's why as they get younger, as they get older, they don't get sick from as many things. So exposure is how we build our immune system.
But
Locking
let's
us
think
up in a
about,
plastic bubble
yeah.
actually will probably weaken our immune system. Our immune system is like it's like our bodies in general. It takes practice. You need to train your immune system, and that means it has to be exposed to certain pathogens in order to build up immunities. Our bodies are wonderful works. Are wonderful works. They are amazing. Many things we don't know about them, and if we let them work and we take care of them, they will work to fight off most of these things. Again, the virus is nothing new.
Well, let's
Um,
think about locking people down, what it does too for the majority of people. I actually, some of you that are following, maybe you're watching, I don't know, that I started a 30-day challenge for everybody for just to stay in shape and eat better and so on and so forth. And I actually, and some of the other people that were in this challenge, they actually got more healthy during this quarantine because there was no excuses to not work out and so on and so forth. But that's not the majority of people. And I've seen some people. I have watched them over these last 8 weeks or so. I mean, seriously, for example, I'm just saying these are not easy things to talk about. And these are people that I know, okay, are horribly out of shape. They've gained multiple pounds. So you could argue all these things that Shawn and I are talking about, you could argue that locking people down is actually less healthy, especially when we start talking about some of the death rates and so on and so forth that we'll talk about just a minute with COVID-19 compared to chronic disease, which the biggest one is obesity because they're all related. A lot of the chronic diseases are related to those. So
yeah.
again, I'm not saying maybe for a time period we need to lock down, but I'm just saying I think it's time to open back up.
Well,
So
I'm with you, brother, and I also think that there are some unintended consequences, and fortunately, I've heard that there are some people getting healthy because I guess the sales of at-home gym equipment have skyrocketed, and that's wonderful. I love it.
it is
So
good.
I hope it's inspired some people.
Yeah.
But let's just look at this, and we've got a picture to show
Sean,
of a little kid sitting on the couch.
before we do that,
So
let's talk
go
about
ahead and show
death
that
rates.
picture.
Wait, before we
And
talk
the
about
most
Wait, let's talk
okay,
about that. Before we get to that, let's talk about death rates. And I want to talk about first also, Sean, is that the people who are ordering gym equipment, I know you're hopeful, you're optimistic, you're like me,
absolutely.
and they were already working out. I just hate the ones
You're
the ones their gyms got closed. I mean, believe me, I know a lot of bodybuilders and powerlifters. They still found ways to work out. They were doing
correct.
so. It's not people that have been sitting on the couch, which you're going to show here, that are now working out. I love that the home gym industry is skyrocketing, but it was those people that were already probably healthy anyway. Before we move on to your picture, Sean, which is very important, let's talk about, you guys have probably seen on social media some of the latest videos and information. And I know I'm like you. I don't know what's true anymore. I don't. We live in a world where we don't know what facts we can trust and what's right and what's not right. Well, it's all right. And what do I mean by that? As scientists, I'm a scientist. We have to take all this information together and then put it together and see if we can make some kind of a story behind it. I guess it's like a hypothesis, and then make some kind of observation and a hypothesis and say, okay, here's what we think about it and have a conclusion, right? Here's what the latest information that's coming out. Okay. Percent cure rate of those that get the disease, COVID-19, 92 to 98%. And that's from California numbers, New York numbers, and Spanish numbers, if I remember correctly. 92 to 98% actual cure rate. Okay. Chance of dying from COVID-19, 0.03%. And look what we just did to the economy and to people. 0.03%. Those are the latest numbers. Okay. Exposure rates from all those countries I'm talking about and those locations and those demographics, which are all different. California, New York, not just New York City, but New York State. Upstate New York is rural. Okay. It's not like Manhattan. It's rural. There's no big buildings. Okay. But so, and then California, there's parts of California that are rural. But from all this testing and in Spain, we're talking, it looks like 40% of the population has been exposed. Okay. So 48%, more than 48% of the people who died had 3 or more comorbid conditions, diabetes, heart disease, and those a lot of times are related to obesity. I think the number, I don't remember right off the top of my head, over 70% had at least one comorbid condition. Okay. And so before we move on to that picture, Sean, we want to talk about testing. Everybody's talking about, because they're also talking about what test is right and what test is good, and can we get faster ones? I'm not sure if that's the answer either. Sean and I were talking last week about, why do we do testing? We do testing, we call it precision medicine, okay? In the clinical field, or in let's just say the healthcare world, okay? We do that to make a prognosis for treatment. So, what treatment are we going to have for COVID-19? The latest antiviral drugs, it's my understanding, either require more information, more clinical data, or they failed. That's the latest information. And we have no vaccine. So why should we test? Or is it fear mongering, Sean?
Well, that I don't know. I'm not going to speculate about that, but I did hear from a good friend of mine who is a physician, and he said, well, we test because then we can isolate. Okay. So here's the problem.
Too late.
Once people test positive,
It's too late.
they've already spread the disease to possibly, we don't know. Right. But you got to think, if they have the disease, they've already spread it a lot. So we're going to isolate them. So how long do we isolate them?
Yeah.
We don't know.
Well,
7 to 14 days, maybe 21 days. I don't like the idea of somebody telling me that they're going to isolate me for 21 days because I tested positive for a disease that somebody has labeled is going to kill the world.
Right.
And I'm definitely over exaggerating for sure, but I just think I see that as a problem.
Well,
So
and the thing of it is these death rates that I just quoted, the percent cure rates, the exposure rates, nearly identical to the common flu that we get every single year.
That is correct. That is correct.
And so that's my understanding. And I think more and more data is going to come out. And obviously we have to, collect the data, observe the data. And I get that. But, the bigger real issue is sick people die. And the sicker you are and the worse your immune system is, the worse off you will be with any disease. So most of these people probably would have died from the flu. And I understand flu deaths this year are down. I wonder why. Because they're saying they died from COVID-19. No, because something already killed them. Something was going to kill these people probably. Pneumonia is way down of killing people. Yeah, because COVID-19 got them first. I mean, these are just facts. Anybody dying is tragic. Everybody's got a grandma, a grandfather, a mom, a dad, a brother, sister, a friend. Okay, but these are sick people that are most likely dying from COVID-19. There are maybe some outliers there. Don't get me wrong.
Well, I would like a caller to call into your show if they know of somebody that was young and healthy and died of this disease. Call in, because I have some questions about that.
Me too.
I've seen a few of those, and one of them was an attorney. He was an attorney, and he worked in he worked with a lot of doctors. Okay, he was healthy, young and healthy, and he ended up living, by the way. But he got very sick, was on a ventilator. Now, was he healthy? Was he working 80, 100 hours a week? Was he sleeping?
Right.
Was his body recovering?
Right.
So and another one I heard of that was on a ventilator. In fact, this was in Washington State. He was an ER doctor. So and he was in his 40s. Are ER doctors healthy? I'm not. This is a generalization.
Absolutely, I understand.
Was he in the middle of a shift where he'd work, 2 24-hour shifts in a row, and he wasn't getting any sleep? I mean, he's obviously an ER doctor, so he's working all kinds of different hours. Yeah. Does that mean his body can recover and his immune system is strong? I don't know. It'd be interesting to see his cortisol levels. Yeah. It would have been interesting to see it. Yeah. So that's why I would love for anybody that knows of a young, healthy person that got sick or died of this disease. I would love to know about it.
Because I hear them on Facebook all the time. Well, I hear healthy people die. And what I'm going to show, what Shawn and I are going to show during this show, is what we call healthy nowadays is not.
It's definitely changed for sure.
We're used to a new normal, and a new normal is looking at 50% of the population at least that are obese and have chronic disease because of it. And that's what we're going to be talking about. These are difficult issues, but just go outside, go to the grocery store, go somewhere and start counting those people. And we'll show you some data on this, what used to be normal and what is not normal now. And so you don't want to strive to be normal. We want to be better than that. Okay. So Shawn, what is the most dangerous thing we can do every day?
Well, speaking of this lockdown, what's happened is it's shut a lot of people in at home. And what do a lot of people do when they're at home? Go ahead and show that picture, Lindsay. That's exactly what they do at home. Sitting on the couch, watching TV, eating junk food, getting obese is the most dangerous thing we do as Americans, period. And I know to some of you, like Shane says, this is going to strike a lot of emotions. And believe me, it strikes a lot of emotions to me. And I'll tell you why. Because 10 years ago, this is what I looked like. And I was 60 pounds heavier, and I was obese. And I had all kinds of chronic conditions. I had high blood pressure. I had high cholesterol. My feet hurt. My knees hurt. I had reflux. All these kind of chronic conditions that in our traditional medical system today, I would have been given medication for it. And believe me, I'm a pharmacist, so I get this stuff. I see this stuff. But in reality, I just need to change my lifestyle. And once I did that, those diseases went away. And go ahead and show the picture of my son too. So my youngest son, Jordan, he just had his 18th birthday yesterday. Congratulations, Jordan. I'm so proud of him. He was morbidly obese when he was 10 years old. And a couple years after, this picture is a couple years after I had lost weight. But he was morbidly obese.
Keep going. We'll get that picture up. Yeah, keep going.
Go ahead. Is the picture up?
Not yet. There we go.
Yeah, there he is. He's 10 years old. And stay tuned for the rest of the show because I'll show you what he looks like now, and I'm super proud of him.
Night and day. I'm proud of him too.
Yeah, super proud of him. By the way, just to let you know, Jordan is the editor of mine and Shane's final production of the videos and puts them on YouTube. So thank you, Jordan.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Jordan. He does a fantastic job. He's done
Yeah.
6 of mine already. And man, if you ever need a CGI guy, computer generated imagery guy, or video editor, yeah, look him up. Just contact me and we'll get you in touch with him. He does an amazing job. Is he going to the U this year, Shawn?
He's headed to Seattle here in June, he says. So we'll see.
Okay.
He's 18. You never know.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. But he's getting ready to graduate this year, and I'm really super proud of him. So that's him as a 10-year-old. It looks totally different now. We'll talk about that later, but go ahead. Keep going, Shawn.
Well, so these issues are near and dear to my heart because, like I said, I was there, and so and I want this story to inspire people, and I love everybody, including obese people, just like I love anybody, and that's why I want to help them because being obese is the most dangerous thing that we can do as Americans, and that's just the bottom line. So go ahead and pull those stats up of what the CDC and chronic disease says in our country. Go ahead and share those stats, and we'll talk a little bit about those.
When I saw Shawn and I were talking over the weekend, of course, we talk nearly every day, and when we saw these stats, they were just staggering. And I'll talk more about these stats when Shawn pulls them up, and he'll talk more about what chronic disease actually is, including some of the mechanical actual complications, but also some of the other normal complications that they call them. And so let me share this stream. Let's see. There's a lot of information here. But basically, Shawn, can you read that out loud to your listeners?
Well, I mean, what I want to hit on is there's four major things that cause chronic disease in America, and it is lack of activity, exercise, nutrition, so what we eat, tobacco-related disease, and alcohol-related disease. So,
now those numbers that you didn't see early on, and this is on the CDC website, okay? So the Center for Disease Control. So you can find it just CDC chronic disease or something like that. You can Google it. But 6 out of 10 Americans have chronic disease. 4 out of 10 have at least 2 or more.
staggering statistics.
Okay, 75%, greater than 75% of healthcare is spent on chronic disease. This is not sustainable.
So what that means is 75% of our healthcare dollar is preventable. These chronic diseases are preventable.
You know how much this costs a year? $3 trillion. Now, I can't keep track of the U.S. budgets anymore because they're trillions and billions and billions. Right. Shawn, do you know the U.S. budget annually? What is it?
Is it 19? Is it 20 trillion, 19 trillion? I don't know. It goes up so much.
Like that. So you're talking $3 trillion a year on healthcare. And guys, people, listeners, don't let anybody fool you. This is not healthcare. It's sick care. Nobody is telling you to get healthy. They're treating your symptoms. What we want to do is a call to action to treat the actual disease so you don't have disease. Shawn, go.
Well, so let's go into this to things that aren't necessarily linked to obesity first. So tobacco use. I think not everybody, but let's face it, most of us should know that tobacco use, there is no safe limit of tobacco use. So, lung cancer, esophageal cancer, all kinds of cancers caused by use of tobacco. Now, there's a lot of indirect cancers too that you might not be able to directly link to them, but because, when you inhale tobacco and you inhale benzopyrenes, which is the things that are in smoke, it's a carcinogen, and those carcinogens can cause all kinds of cancers in the body. So we know for a fact that esophageal cancer and mouth cancers and lung cancer are definitely directly linked, but there's a lot of indirect link too. So, So I think that one's a pretty obvious one. We've known that for years. Here's one that is not as obvious, possibly, is alcohol use. And I just say it, alcohol is a poison. Ethanol, alcohol that we drink, is a poison, period. And I will say that, for years there's been studies to show that 1 or 2 drinks a day is okay and it can help relax you. And well, I mean, that's true, but if you have to have alcohol, which is a CNS depressant, a central nervous system depressant, if you have to have that every day to sleep, that's a problem.
No problem.
Maybe you could exercise more to make yourself tired.
And by the way, you don't sleep better either.
You
You
do
don't.
initially, but you'll wake up like 4 hours later.
Yeah, exactly.
Once it
Yeah.
wears off. That's just the pharmacokinetics of alcohol. So I think 1 or 2 drinks a day is way too much. That's my opinion. And here's one of the other things. It is
And
a
by the way,
poison.
remember what a drink is. One drink is not a 40 ounce. What do they call those things? I'm not a drinker, so I don't know these, but they call them 40 ounce beers or something. They make
right a 40 dog,
40
a
dog,
40 ounce. Right, that's
whatever
not.
it is. Yeah, and
Yeah.
so
Well,
that is one drink.
it's interesting because how we've progressed in America, it's all about supersize in America. So when you go out and you order a beer, which I am not a beer drinker at all, and I don't drink very much, and I am not condemning anybody that does, because I still drink a little and I will still continue to do that. But I still understand how it hurts me, and it hurts recovery in my body, and it is a poison, period. So
Yeah.
if your body is detoxifying that poison, that means it can't strengthen its immune system. That means it can't help your body recover from workouts. There's a lot of detriments to it. So
Shawn, there were some studies several years ago, maybe even a couple of decades ago, but wine is different. Wine is better for you. And so I know lots of people that do 1, 2, 3 glasses of wine a night, sometimes half a bottle a night, however many glasses that is. I don't know because I don't do this stuff. But what do you say about that?
it's the same thing. It's still a poison. I mean, alcohol is a poison. So, and let's just speak
what
of
are the ingredients in wine that maybe you could get somewhere else?
Well, they say that with red wine, because it's colored, that it has some special antioxidants in it. Okay, I get that. But guess what? So do fruits and vegetables. So if you want to get those same antioxidants, eat the colors of the rainbow with fruits and vegetables. And you'll get the same antioxidants. Okay.
Eat the animal that eats the fruits and vegetables.
Well, that's a whole
other conversation.
That's a whole other conversation for sure.
Hashtag carnivore. That's
right. Okay. So speaking of drinks, it is interesting when you go out like to a restaurant, they'll say, well, what size of beer do you want? Do you want the 16 ounce or the 22 ounce? Now recognize that one drink is 12 ounces of beer. And you can't even get that when you go out and order a beer now at most bars or restaurants. It's a drink and a quarter at least, almost 2 if you get 22 ounce.
And let's not even think about the poison involved, but let's just think of that. So 20 ounce is a 12 ounce is a 12 ounce beer. Shawn, do you know how many calories is it?
It's about 170 calories for a 12 ounce beer. Think about it.
20 grams of carbohydrates. So double that, you're talking 40 grams of carbohydrates in a typical 22 ounce beer with no benefits. Zero.
It is completely wasted calories. Completely wasted calories.
Alcohol has 7 calories per gram as far as how our body actually metabolizes.
Right. It doesn't literally, but how our body looks at it. Yes.
Exactly. Anyway, that's a whole other conversation.
Right. So here's another thing as Americans, what we've done is like, well, I only have 2 beers a night. Well, 2 22 ounce beers is like 4 beers. I mean,
holy moly.
Yeah, right. And just the calories. I mean, just look at the calories that you're doing, not just aside that it's a poison. So my opinion is that, really you should limit yourself to 1 to 2 drinks a week. And when I mean 1 or 2 drinks, I mean that, the 12 ounce of beer, 6 ounces of wine, that is a drink, so
CDC has talked about 4 things that directly are attributed to obesity, chronic disease. And so, or chronic disease. And Shawn spoke about 2 of them: tobacco use and alcohol use. And basically both of them are poisons. What are the other 2, Shawn?
So lack of activity. And exercise gets a bad connotation. So I don't like to call it exercise. Just call it movement. Call it lack of activity. because we just, most of us work in sedentary jobs. I work in a sedentary job.
Me too.
I'm a pharmacist. So if I didn't do exercise outside of work, I would really have to severely limit my calories. And speaking of calories, so let's say, you read on the back of a box based on a 2,000 a day calorie limit. Let me tell you, if I did not exercise extra, I could not eat 2,000 calories a day without gaining weight, period. I would need only about 1,200. So, activity is important. And not only is activity important for so we can expend calories, but it has so many other benefits to make us more flexible, lubricate the joints. It stimulates neurotransmitters in our brain so we don't get depressed. The best prescription for depression is exercise.
But
Period.
that's true. That's true.
Period.
But you know what? You know what? One of the best things is, so Shawn's talked about three things that are contributors to chronic disease: tobacco use, alcohol, both of are poisons, and then lack of physical activity. You know what physical activity does? I used to listen to my dad a lot. Oh, I still do, and what he used to talk about of what they used to do as kids. Okay. And by the way, you had 3 meals a day. You got what you got. That was it.
No seconds.
There were no snacks because
seconds.
There was no seconds. They didn't have money, by the way, but there was no seconds. And we'll show you. I've seen pictures of my dad and his 3 brothers. He grew up with 4 brothers, about 4 years apart. And these guys were lean and mean, never lifted weights, and didn't really control their diets as we know about diets now. But they didn't overactively eat. I can tell you that.
Well, they couldn't.
They couldn't. Now, this is what's important about activity that I've been thinking about. So I took the boys fishing the other day, and we were out of cell phone service. We were out at a lake, and we were just talking about these kind of things. And we were talking about obesity. Yes, I talk to my children about obesity. Absolutely. It's one of those things that parents should talk to their kids about. And so I was talking to them about it. And I said, you know what the most important thing about being active is? We were out in the middle of nowhere in a lake that was just beautiful. Okay. In the foothills. Well, some people would call it mountains. I call it the foothills, but surrounded by a forest. You know what? You know what was important about that activity? There was no refrigerator or pantry. There was no snacking, and we didn't bring anything. And I think about what our dad used to do, Shawn, where they would get on their bikes and they would ride to their grandma's house. I think it was 10 miles out of town, wasn't it, Shawn? Something like that.
Yeah, because she lived in outside in Sealand. They lived in Yakima, so probably
10 miles. So these 4 boys, teenagers on down, probably young teenagers on down, they'd ride 10 miles out to their grandma's house, or they would go to the swimming pool and be there all day. No snacks. No snacks.
Right.
Here's what parents do nowadays. They take their kids in the car from one house to the other, from one play date to another. That's it. So you go from one cupboard and refrigerator to another. And we wonder why we have a pandemic of obesity.
Or we take him to baseball practice. We don't make them ride their bikes.
No.
We take them in a car to baseball practice, and we pack an ice chest so we can watch them.
Right. Exactly.
Seriously.
I know. The point of this is lack of activity is more important about keeping your mind off just snacking. Because I know a lot of people are struggling with this right now in a quarantine. They look at the refrigerator all the time. They look at their pantry. And by the way, I have I don't have anything in my pantry. We looked at the other day. I had some protein, some egg protein, some beef jerky, goldfish the kids don't even eat anymore. And we had a box of cereal. And I said, it was Cheerios. And I said, you guys even eat that stuff anymore? And they said, no. I threw it in the garbage.
That's symbolic. Throw it away. Very symbolic. I always tell people this. It's either wasted in the garbage or it's wasted here.
That's right. That's right. Exactly. So we've got 3 things: poison of tobacco, poison of alcohol, and lack of physical activity all contribute to chronic disease, Shawn. What's the big one?
Nutrition. And what we eat, our diets. And here's the problem. You were speaking about it. Here's the problem in general in America. I get it. There are exceptions to this rule, but not an exception to my rule, because in general, when I get home, I have an unlimited food supply. Yeah. I have a freezer full of meat, or a refrigerator full of all kinds of food, a pantry full of food. Now, we do our best to buy whole foods and not have junk food. So it's harder to snack. You have to prepare your foods. But still, I don't have a problem eating at work because I don't have lots of food sources here.
And by the way, it's only in the last 150 years that we've had an unlimited food supply. Throughout the history,
Oh, I would say more like 70 years actually.
probably, yeah, just because of
Honestly, actually, after the Great Depression, because probably after post World War II, did we really have an excess of food? Honestly, because that's when World War II actually was, Simplot came into play in World War II, and a lot of
he's an
processed
Idaho
foods
guy. So
did.
that's good. He's an Idaho guy. That's good.
Yeah, right. But a lot of processed foods were because of World War II, because we could store them better during World War II. So that came into the America into the 50s, and now we basically have all kinds of ways to store our food where we used to
Well,
not be able to.
So he's talking about nutrition, and so tell us about nutrition and how that's a link to obesity, and really it's a simple calculation.
Well,
Calories in versus calories out.
that is true. Calories in, calories out. I mean, it is that. I mean, there's some people that will say that it's different, and I get it. I could debate with them, but in general,
it is different. But that's the easy part about it. Don't eat
correct.
too much.
It is easy. It's calories in, calories out for nutrition. Now, it's harder to eat healthy foods. It's harder to eat too many healthy foods as it is junk foods. Here's a good example. Let's say an apple. One apple has 100 calories. Okay. I can tell you, I can eat junk food. I can eat a lot of stuff, and I can eat a lot of junk food. I pretty much guarantee you, I could not eat 2 apples. 2 apples is 200 calories. I guarantee you, I could eat a box of Oreos. I am not kidding.
Or Shawn, you could drink a whole gallon of apple juice.
That's true, and that's the box of Oreos is probably over 1,000 calories. The apple juice, depending on the size, is going to be that too. It's just easy to overeat that stuff.
Get rid of the juices in your house. Get rid of them.
And by the way, meat. I mean, serious. I cannot really eat much more than about 12 ounces of meat. And in reality, that's only
a day.
No, at one sitting.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
At one sitting, I can't eat much more than 12 ounces. Even that's pushing it.
I'll just give you an example of yesterday, of kind of how me and the boys ate yesterday. So got up in the morning, I had 5 eggs, a little bit of oatmeal, steel cut oats, and then a protein shake. And then I had throughout the day 1.5 pounds of grilled chicken. And then at night, I had 2 patties of grilled hamburgers. And you know what? I still was under my calorie limit, which I don't count calories. I count protein. That's just how I do it.
But it works. It kind of works out.
It does work out. But my point of it was I was not hungry. In fact, I wanted more protein by the end of the day. So I had to eat some more meat. And I think at that point I had like 1,800 calories, something like that. Yeah. But I was stuffed. And I had, by that point, I had 250 grams of protein in my body. And it was
real food is amazing.
Real food's amazing. Oh, I did have a half a sweet potato too with no skin, but real food's amazing. So let's get back on obesity. So we got alcohol, tobacco, and our lack of activity, and now nutrition.
Okay, well, here's what I like to tell people. This is what I tell my patients. This is what I tell anybody when it comes to eating and exercise. Okay, we do not have to exercise to live. We don't.
No.
We do not have to exercise to live. We do have to eat to live. Yeah. So if you're going to pick one or the other to try to prevent obesity, I would say pick diet. And you taught me years ago, Shane, and I tried it for years. I tried, because when Shane and I grew up, we were not taught good diets at all. We had plenty of junk food, plenty of processed food.
We just didn't have the information back
then. And I'm not blaming my parents at all. It was just pure ignorance, for lack of a better term, just pure ignorance. And so I ate that way when I was in college. I ate that way when I got out of college, and then I started to struggle with my weight. Now, but I would try to exercise more. And I remember Shane telling me, and Shane, being a bodybuilder, he knew how important nutrition was. And he told me this. He says, you cannot exercise your way out of a poor diet. Yeah. Period. You can't. Yeah. You cannot bike, run, lift enough weights to get out of a poor diet. You can't.
Well,
you can't do it.
One of my first trainers ever, I eventually got a trainer just because I've been lifting since I was 14, but I got kind of bored and wanted some extra help. Like everybody needs a coach. And my trainer, Vince Allen, told me that. So thank you very, very much, Vince. And that's when things started to really change for me, is when I started really fine tuning my diet. So you really, and here's the deal. I'm just going to be honest with you. you're going to feel lots of emotions when you hear this. I am on the side. I'm a bodybuilder. That's not how I make my living, of course, but nutrition, ever since I was about 15 or 16, has fascinated me. Okay. And I've gone through all kinds of diets and researched them and so on and so forth and tried it myself. Okay. But here's the deal. I've watched a lot of people, and when people say, well, she can just eat anything and be thin, or he can eat anything and be thin, follow them around. Follow them around for a
Absolutely.
couple of days. I've done this. And truly, the thin people out there, and I love everybody. The thin people out there, I know people, for example, that go all day and they eat a granola bar for their breakfast and lunch. I'm not saying that's good or bad. And then they'll have maybe some steak at dinner. Or sometimes they don't eat it all during the day. I'm not saying that's healthy or not. But you know what? Guess what? They're not overweight. I mean,
Well,
they're just not.
all right, I don't necessarily buy the thing about having a fast metabolism or slow metabolism, and I'll
Either.
share a story on that about what changed my son's life, Jordan's life, and he's inspired many others around him now because of it. But so my oldest son, Shawn Michael, he's never struggled with his weight, and Jordan had always struggled with his weight, my younger son, and they're about 2 years apart. And one time I went to Disneyland with him, and I was able to follow them around for a whole week. And I realized why.
Yeah.
Because Shawn Michael would eat part of his plate. My oldest would eat part of his plate, and there'd be food left over, and he's done. And when he's done, he's done. I mean,
Right.
he is done. Well, I'm not that way. And Jordan learned it from me. I eat everything on my plate, and even though I'm full, I'll still go back and pick off food, and so, and that's how Jordan ate. So I realized that when we got back from Disneyland, and I wanted to talk to him about it, and this so we got back, and we were actually at home, and he's eating an ice cream bar, and I said, "Hey Jordan, how much do you weigh?" And he said, 120. Now, mind you, he was 10 years old, and that means he would have weighed 120 for the last 3 years. I
Wow.
knew that probably wasn't the case. So I
Yeah.
said, "Hey, Jordan, let's go get on the scale." The first thing he did is he takes that ice cream bar and he puts it down on the counter, and he says, "Dad, I don't want that anymore." And I said, "Good." Now that's symbolic, very symbolic. And I
Absolutely.
told him, I said, "Okay, we need to throw it away. Let's throw that thing away right now." Very symbolic.
By the way, psychologists that treat obesity, that's exactly what they show you to do. And that's what I do in my house now. I'll have a birthday party for the kids. We'll all eat a couple of pieces of cake. I usually pass because I don't want the cake. I just don't. I throw the rest in the trash can.
I mean, those are good principles, especially if you can't control yourself.
Now,
I'm never going to control myself.
I'm gonna quote my brother here. I'm gonna quote Shawn. Here's what people say: "Oh, I don't want to deprive my children. I don't want to deprive them of the chips and the Doritos and the Cheetos and the cake." You know what? Here's what Shawn says: "I don't want to deprive them of their feet and their eyesight when they get diabetes and lose their eyes or their kidneys."
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
a fact. What Shawn just described, what he did to his son, seems like it is cruel to our day today. And I am very passionate about this. So I get kind of wound up about it. It is not. We are parents. Would you let your kids snort cocaine? Would you let them shoot up heroin? No, you would not. Then why let them have a poor diet and continue to feed it to them? It is
And by the way,
it's
by the
irresponsible.
way, it started with me. It had to start with me. I mean,
Absolutely.
I couldn't be telling I could be telling Jordan to lose weight if I was obese.
Right, Shawn, you're the parent. That's why I had to start with you. You have to,
Right.
right? And as a coach, I would see a lot of parents, for example, say, "I want my kids to work harder," or my kid needs to be in a certain weight class. Yet they weren't very healthy themselves. I want them to start lifting weights. Do they lift weights? No. If you don't do it, parents,
It's from the
kids aren't
top
gonna do it.
down.
So I rarely, and I look at a lot of people, believe me, because I'm not judging, I'm observing because I'm a scientist like Shawn. Okay. Whenever I see obese kids, I tend to see obese parents. That's usually the case. Wouldn't you say that's true, Shawn?
Absolutely, that's true.
It's
Yeah,
not
absolutely.
genetics, because
Yeah.
here's what you can see. You can see these kids aren't born, they're born chubby, okay? And then what happens is, because that's what babies are, but you can see them. I've watched the progressions of some of my kids as friends, for example. They're a little bit overweight in kindergarten. more overweight in first grade. By the time you get to fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth grade, they're even more overweight. That's not genetics. That's what
No.
you're giving them at home.
Well, why don't we show that video?
I don't want to be mean. Yeah, let's start.
Let's show that video of the 1962 PE class.
Let's do that. Put that up here. This is a 1962 PE class, and I want you to know, Shawn and I are, we're old. Okay, maybe not as old as some, but this is what PE used to be like. And then I'm going to tell you about what PE standards are now. So let's get that video up. It's a minute-long video. Watch this. Now, what I want to point out to you here is this is what people looked like back then. This was normal. Okay. My dad was about in this era. Again, I've seen his teenage pictures of him and his brothers. They looked like this.
They did.
And they could do these things. They could automatically jump up on a chin-up bar and do chin-ups. They could do push-ups. Because they were not overweight and they were being active. These were normal things for them. Let's watch this video. It is really, really good. I'm going to stop sharing mine and Shawn's screens because I want you guys to see this whole screen. Okay, Shawn, we're back. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yep, I can hear you fine.
Stop sharing that. I just gave a little teaser to people. That was a normal PE class in the 1960s. And it was actually kind of, I guess, inspired by President John F. Kennedy. And Shawn, that's how we trained in the 1970s and 80s, wasn't it?
Absolutely, we did.
PE class. We wrestled in PE class. And so let me read you the Idaho standards of PE right now. As a 12th grader, here's what you're expected to do after you've graduated from 12th grade PE. Participate in moderate to vigorous physical activity for at least 50% of the lesson time. Imagine that's 30 minutes only. Be able to walk 3,200 steps in 40 minutes. Walk. That's the requirement.
We had to run the mile.
Run the mile. Shawn, what was it to get a gold? 20 chin-ups or 18?
I think it was 18.
And then you had to do what, 100 sit-ups in a minute to get a gold shirt?
Mm-hmm. And I think we had to run a mile under 6 minutes.
That's right. And I can't remember how many push-ups we had to do. We had to do some push-ups too. But anyway, push-ups aren't even on here. It's about walking. And I've seen kids' classes nowadays in PE, they do cup stacking. Cup stacking.
I don't even know what that is.
Well, my son, who's 12, who's a wrestler as well, he's laughing right now. It's funny. It's cup stacking and walking. And so why are we there? Because you know what? Everybody would fail that class because the majority of them are overweight.
Well, here's what my thought about that whole thing is. I think as a society, aren't we supposed to progress?
Yeah.
To me, those standards are regressive.
Totally regressive. Totally regressive.
You know, I mean, I think, and
bad. We don't want to make anybody feel bad, but what you're doing is you're putting your kids and our whole children and our whole society on the wrong trajectory. Number one, we can't afford this as a society. And number two, it's not healthy. They will have no quality of life if you don't change their eating habits, if we don't change our eating habits. Okay. And so can you bring up the picture of ideal? What we want to start talking about is obesity and what we've gotten used to what normal looking is, and ideal body weight pictures. Let's pull those up. And I do not want this picture to scare you. I want it to inspire you. Inspire you. Okay. So we're going to pull up a picture here. Uh-oh, we lost his stream. That's okay. Okay. So we're going to recover. I'll try to get back in touch with my brother. But what it was is it's actually a picture of what percentage of body fats actually look like. Shawn's going to be back with us in just a second. Okay. And he's logging back in. Don't know whether it has some technical difficulties. So we'll just wait right here. We're going to see him here in a minute.
Back.
Shawn, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so we don't know what happened. These things happen, but we couldn't quite share that. And if that was the problem, we'll just move on. But we couldn't, for some reason, see that picture or that site that you were trying to show us. Can you guys get that up without any difficulty this time?
Yeah, let's try. Let's try to get that up.
I can see it now.
It's up now.
Yep. Okay, so let's go back here. Hey, way to recover from all of that. This is a picture, you can find lots of them online, of actually what healthy body weights look like. Okay, now I want you to know that I've been a lot of these, and males look different than females. In general, some of the things are very, very similar. So I'm not going to look at the exact details. Now you're going to see some on the far extreme. I'm just going to compare the males. Okay. Males on the far extreme upper left, you're talking 1 to 4% body fat. That's a bodybuilder on stage. Okay. I've been that level. That's not the level we're looking for. Okay. Even the next one, 4 to 6%, that's not the level we're looking for. But the one that says in the 8 to 10% range, or that range, I'm not looking at it exactly right now. That's where a healthy male should be. Yes, a healthy male should be able to see their abdominal muscles. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And if you looked at that video of the 1960s, that's what people looked like all the time. All the time. Okay. And so that was normal. Now what we're used to looking at is people in this 40% range, 30% range. That is not healthy. You will have knee pain. Shawn, can you describe some of the chronic disease complications? Just describe some of them.
Oh, well, so obesity is related to high blood pressure, which is related to cardiovascular disease, heart attack, and stroke. Okay. It's high cholesterol, which there's been correlation of cardiovascular disease, and sleep apnea. Sleep apnea is the number one reason for sleep apnea is obesity. If you think about what sleep apnea is, it puts, it's when you wake up, you wake up and snore, you can't sleep very well because you're not breathing. Well, when you have extra pressure on your in your abdominal cavity in your chest, you can't breathe. So losing weight will fix sleep apnea. Reflux, I talked about that. I had reflux.
Yeah.
Reflux, heartburn. That can be it's diet related, but also extra weight puts pressure on your esophagus, which makes it reflux back. So the answer is not medication. The answer is not necessarily a CPAP. I'm not telling people to go against what their doctors have told them at all. But the answer is not necessarily a CPAP to fix your sleep apnea, especially if you're overweight. Lose weight first. I did not. That's when I went to the doctor and I had those diseases and I was overweight. I decided there was another way, and that's when I decided to lose weight. Unfortunately, a lot of medical providers either aren't educated about it or they don't think patients will listen. And I think that's a pretty arrogant statement as us as medical professionals to say that patients won't listen. Because I can tell you this: if I had a doctor and they would have slapped me up alongside the head and said, "Shawn, you're going to die a fat pig if you don't lose weight," I would have said, "You know what? You're right, and I'm going to lose weight." And I needed to hear that. Now, I'm not saying that's always the way to address this.
Actually,
but that's what I needed to hear.
It's no different than being a coach or a parent. You have to make those difficult decisions and those difficult conversations. You have to. That is your job. That is your job. And so let's look at the women. So we're looking at, obviously, in the 10 to 15% range is healthy for a male. If you are an adolescent and you are an athlete, I'm telling you, 7% body fat, 8% body fat is normal and achievable and healthy. And you will be the best athlete you can be at that point.
Absolutely.
Not even close.
I tell every athlete when I talk to anybody about nutrition and they have kids that are in sports and their kids they're not ideal body weight and they're baseball players and they think they can just get away with being a baseball player because they can have 15-20% body fat and they can get away with playing baseball and at a competitive level. And I'm not saying that you can't have skills that can do that. But if you are ideal body weight, you will be better.
Absolutely.
Now, there are sports that are exceptions. I mean, a lineman in the NFL, I get it. That's totally different, but that's a very specific, small portion of the
Yeah.
population. So,
Right. It is. And so look, that's where you're looking at. If you're any kind of an athlete, I don't care if you're a wrestler, a baseball player, a basketball player, and you're a youth, 7 to 8%. Now, I'm going to use a term here that a lot of people maybe understand and have heard of it. Some people haven't. I want to look at these body weights and these body pictures and show you all the way from 40% to 1 to 4%. And again, healthy's, let's say, in the 10% range. Okay. Some people are long and lanky. I'm not. And I'm glad for that. God made me short and stocky. That's fine. Okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay. I've learned to live with it. I excel at that. I like it. Okay. There's some people that are long and lanky. Okay. And then they raise up their shirt and they're called what we call skinny fat.
mm-hmm.
In other words, they look lean on the outside and then they actually take off some of their clothes and they're called skinny fat. If you listen here, long and lanky people, and I'm not making fun of anybody because it's hard for me to get abdominals because I'm short and stocky. I'm compact. Long and lanky people can get them easier. Okay. And you got to put down the fork. If you're long and lanky and you still can't see your abs, you're skinny fat. Your body fat percentages are not going to be in this range. Now, why do I say this in the world that we talk about self-image? I'll tell you why. Because BMI doesn't work. BMI doesn't take into account muscle mass. If I talked about body mass index, I'm supposed to weigh 139 pounds. I think that's what I'm supposed to weigh. Okay. I weigh 190 and have 9% body fat, something like that at this point. Okay. And so I am in the healthy range, but I don't use the BMI. I use the mirror. Am I getting leaner? It doesn't mean I don't like myself. It doesn't mean I'm not happy with myself. It means I use the mirror as a tool to say, am I at a healthy body weight? Okay. And I like to be in the single digits. I like to be in the single digit body fat ranges. Okay. It makes me feel better. I feel better. I operate better. I lift better. I move better. I sleep better. All of that. Okay. So let's think about women when you look at these bodies. Well, women, I'm going to say advantageously, they can be at about 15% body fat and see their abdominals. They can actually carry a little bit more weight because their weight for a female is in the exterior. It's in their buttocks, gluteus maximus, and their legs. Okay. But look at what a female should look like at the correct body fats. And this is a pretty good scale from what I've seen as well. And so a healthy female, probably in the 15% body fat range, is really a healthy female in that range. Now, I'm just going to put this out there. And this is just because a lot of our society has had this now. If you've had plastic surgeries and you're a female, like if you've had tummy tucks, if you've had liposuction, turn yourself around in the mirror and look at your rear. And that's a whole different story. DM me on that one, because just because you may have a skinny frontier because you've sucked it all out does not mean you're at a healthy body weight. Okay. I'm just saying it. So there's different ways to use these tools, and men and women are different than each other. But remember those people that we saw in that video? Could you even identify mesomorphs, ectomorphs, endomorphs? No. Could you identify a lean and lanky one? No. They were all lean.
Right. Well, and one thing I almost want to say is that, the scale is a tool. So, if you're trying to lose weight and get leaner, the scale is a tool, and BMI might be a tool. But that's just it. They're tools. And the important thing is, one of the things that you taught me, Shane, being a bodybuilder, and I think your coach taught you this, is that it's not a weight contest. And like you say, I'm not as heavy as you are. I have about 8 to 9% body fat like you do, but I don't have the muscle mass you do just because of the way I train. But I'm still 35 pounds overweight,
according to BMI.
According to BMI. So,
Right.
And I do not want to weigh 140 pounds. I would not look good at 140 pounds. I like having a big upper body. I like having bigger arms. I like having bigger pecs and bigger shoulders. I don't mind that.
Wrong. Well, that tool was created in 1940 when we didn't know about lifting. We didn't know about protein intake.
True.
We didn't know, and we didn't have the food that we have now, which unfortunately we have an abundance of food now. But point of it is, don't go by the BMI. The body mass index is old scale. Do not use it. I don't care what your doctor says. I mean, I'm not going to tell you.
And the important thing is that it's a why do we want to lose weight? Not just to be healthy. Let's face it. I mean, there's some self-interest involved. We want to look good, don't we? I
There's
mean,
nothing wrong
and
with
there's
that.
nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Right. Now here's one of the things too. I just want to tell everybody this. Most any of us will never look like a bodybuilder, ever. We'll
No,
never
you
look like a
won't.
bodybuilder, and realize those bodybuilders look like that for a day. One day they look like that.
Well,
And they
yeah,
cannot continue to look like that for months at a time. They can't. It's
true.
impossible.
It's true. It's impossible.
Right.
I wouldn't say impossible, so I don't like using that term, but to
And so
maintain a 1 to 4% body fat over a sustained time, bodybuilders don't do it either. There's some people that
right.
can do it in the 5 to 6% ranges on a routine basis. Most can't. Most can't. And so remember, what you see on TV or what you see on the stage or on Instagram is usually that's them when they're on the stage. And like Shawn says, they don't look like that for very long. Yeah.
Well, and realize this with the pictures were of male bodybuilders. I don't have the picture in front of me, but realize that some of the Instagram models, especially for women that you see on Instagram, not only that they might only look like that for a little while, but don't try to necessarily look like that, because they've been photoshopped and all kinds of doctored photos. So what's important is you got to learn to love your body, and we are giving you tools to kind of know where that range should be. And everybody is different. Shane already discussed how his body is different than, look at how different Shane and I are. We're 25, 30 pounds, different in weight, yet we still are not going to ever be that tall, lanky guy he's talking about. So everybody's body is different. So you got to learn to love your body, and in order to learn to love your body, you got to know what's achievable. And in order to change your body, you got to change your brain. It's all in your brain. So you've got to understand that mindset, and that's what we're trying to do here with this podcast.
So if there's any callers, we're going to be wrapping it up here in just a few minutes, but if there's any callers, again, 1-877-995-2111. So Shawn, what's the call to action? And I know you're going to show some pics of you before and after, but what can we do? What can we do?
Well, I think first and foremost, nutrition, our diets, and it's about portion control. It's about, first of all, there's some simple tips I like to use, and I stole this from somebody, and actually she's going to be on my radio show later today. We'll be streaming live on my Facebook at 1:00, and she's a health coach, and she coined the term "small hinges swing big doors." Okay, you can go a lot of places with that. So first of all, let's think about it. If you're using tobacco, stop. If you can't stop, cut down. If you're drinking 2 drinks a night, drink 1. That's a small hinge, okay? With diet, if you snack a lot, stop snacking. Simple stuff. If you go to Starbucks 5 days a week, maybe go 1 day a week. Not only will that save your calories, but it'll save you financially too. Small hinges swing big doors. And those things just add up. And it's not going to happen overnight. You can't change everything overnight, but I believe changing your diet is probably the most important when it comes to obesity. And largely it's about portion control. Remember, a portion is the size of your hand, not the size of a plate. The size of your hand is a portion, which is in generally about 100 to 125 calories, depending on what the substance is. I think that's my call to action, is just small hinges swing big doors. I mean, I want to encourage, I want to educate and empower people that they're in charge of their own health.
Yeah.
75% of these diseases are preventable in healthcare. Right. You won't need to go to the doctor. You won't need to go to the hospital. You can protect yourself from COVID-19 better if you are ideal body weight. Not ideal body weight, ideal body composition.
The pandemic is obesity. The pandemic, it's way worse than COVID-19. And if you're not obese and have chronic disease, then you're better off prepared for your immune system to handle these diseases like COVID-19.
Correct.
Shawn, do you have those pictures?
So let me go
of you.
Yeah, let me go ahead and throw my picture up there, my after picture. And some people might have already seen it, but here's my after picture, and that's was taken last summer, actually. So I had lost 60 pounds. What's that?
Did we see your before picture?
Yeah, go ahead. Let me show the before picture. Here in 2010, here's my before picture.
Okay, I'm going to share that to the stream right now. It's added.
Okay.
So this is Shawn in 2010. So we're talking 10 years ago. And obviously, you look at him and you look at those ideal body weight pictures we showed, I guarantee you we can't see his abdominal muscles. Okay.
No.
So you have an after.
I do. And by the way, in that picture, you can tell I'm not very happy. Why? I was depressed. I hated taking pictures. I hated seeing myself in the mirror.
I get it.
I hate. The answer was not an antidepressant. The answer was to lose weight.
Right. Right.
So here's my after picture. This was taken last summer.
Yeah. Look at the difference. Now, he looks like somebody from the 1962 gym class right there. Okay. I'm serious.
By the way, I just gotten done riding a 50-mile mountain bike race.
And he's still happy. He's still got a smile on his face.
I was stoked.
That's what competitors do. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing that, but congratulations, brother. I'm really, really proud of you.
But you know what? What's even more dear to my heart is, let me show you my after picture. Did we see our before picture of Jordan?
Yes, you did.
We did.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Let's see an after.
Let's show the after. This was taken yesterday, his 18th birthday.
Okay. Let's see. Your producer's bringing it up.
Yep. And there he is.
Okay, let's look at it. Yeah, look at that. Amazing.
He doesn't have his shirt off. Unfortunately, my kids won't let me take pictures of them with their shirt off, but they are ripped. They are ripped. I mean, they work out 6 days a week. Yeah. And I'm so proud of him. Jordan weighs his food every day. He weighs his food that he eats. He tracks his calories.
He wants to be a bodybuilder. He always talks about lifting and bodybuilding and all the time. And so he might be one someday. So, hey.
Well, Jordan, he might.
Go for it.
I'm going to guess, you're probably better than I am, Shane, but I'm going to guess Jordan is 8% body fat, 7?
I would say between 8 and 9, probably. Yeah.
Okay. That. He's very lean. And here's one of the things too. Here's what's great.
Think about the 8-9% that we're talking about, Shawn. That was normal in 1960. That was normal. Yeah. So people that are talking about genetics do not change in 1 or 2 generations. Your habits do. So it's not genetics. Okay. All right.
Right. So here's what even makes me, here's what I like to say on our radio show, Health Solutions with Shawn and Janet Needham. We talk about proximity principle a lot. So, and one thing is that eating healthy, exercise is contagious. Jordan has inspired many people to do that. Jordan gets questions from friends all over because they want to know what he's done to change his life.
And you know what? He always wants to learn more too. So he's always asking me questions too. It's great. And he's texting me all the time. It's great. Yeah.
Yeah, it is awesome. So if we as individuals, first of all, it started from me as a parent. I got to think, I'm not trying to take credit for it, but I got to think that it would have never happened if I hadn't lost weight in the first place.
Shawn, it's okay to take credit for being a good parent. All right. Congratulations. And that's okay. I'm not saying it's all on you, and it's you and your wonderful wife, but it's a team effort. But at the same time, it's okay to take credit as a parent. Our kids are kids for a reason. They need direction. They need direction. That is our job. If we truly didn't give our kids direction and we let them do whatever they want, they would hang out at the skateboard park and smoke pot all day. I'm not kidding.
And eat Doritos.
Yeah. That's true. And I laugh about it because it sounds funny, but no, don't let your kids do anything they want. We are parents, and it starts with us as parents. Shawn, let me tell you another interesting fact. What they're saying right now, they're actually seeing some of these numbers already. This right now, the generation that is currently dying right now is the first generation that is not living longer than the last generation. Did you know that?
I've heard that. Yep.
They say the millennials are going to be the first generation that will certainly die 4 to 5 years before the previous generation for one reason.
Obesity.
Obesity.
It's an epidemic.
It's an epidemic. This is a huge problem in our society that I hope we can help solve. Okay.
Let me go ahead and throw up one more picture of my family.
Yep, I see it.
Because I'm super proud of my family, and it's on there. Our producer is there. Go ahead and share it on your screen, Shane.
I got it. It's shared. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a picture of my family last summer, and I'm proud of everybody in my family, and it's a team effort, and with your spouse, it's got to be with you and your spouse. It can't be one or the other. It's like if one of you wants to stop smoking, the other one has to stop smoking. It's the same thing with eating and exercising.
Well,
You have to do it together,
and
and
drinking.
it is contagious to your kids.
Absolutely.
It is contagious to your friends.
Yep.
We know that, and and that's what I want to do. My call to action is to inspire people and encourage people that they can do it by taking small steps.
Awesome. Awesome.
And if they love their family and they love their friends, they will do it.
Excellent. They will change their diets. They will change their activity levels if you hang around the right people and you have the right direction and you look towards those others. And we try to lead each other and be examples. Shawn, that is truly, truly amazing. So I'm going to stop sharing that. It's just me and you. And we're going to be wrapping this up. So one of the things that I like to remember, our theme here is never be outworked. And one of the things I like to ask my guests is, what one thing have you think maybe even personally, and Shawn and I have a lot of the same similar mindsets. We're very optimistic. We're very driven, ambitious, goal-oriented, and there's lots of good in that. Okay. Lots of strengths in that. We're both natural leaders. And so we don't really think of failure as a failure. We just think of it as you get back up and you just get better. It's kind of a wrestling mindset too. We both wrestled in high school, and my kids are wrestlers, and I was a wrestling coach. But Shawn, what one thing would you say, maybe self-reflecting on you, or maybe even other people would have thought, hey, you failed at something, but you look at it and you think about what happened afterwards and it actually caused you more success? What story would that be?
Well, the story is, there's many failures. I don't look at them as failures. I look at them as a learning experience. You find out that something that didn't work, but that's great.
It is.
Then you learn something and you can try something that does work. And that's the only way you get better at anything.
Absolutely.
And I don't even like calling it failure, because I'm an optimist. I don't believe that failure is not an option. So I look at it as a learning experience to always get better. And I don't care if it's in mountain bike racing, or if it's in my business. You find out what works. It's not, and doesn't work. It's not a failure. It's an opportunity to learn from it.
Right. That's awesome. Well, this has been wonderful, Shawn. So we talked about COVID-19 and obesity and what is the real pandemic, not only locally and temporally. Obesity, there's a correlation here. Obesity and the chronic diseases related to it, people die from COVID-19 that have those chronic diseases. Okay, number one. But what's even better is if we start changing our habits now, then we can be more prepared for not only a quality of life immediately, but we can be better prepared for what the next pandemic or the next virus or the next bacteria, whatever this world throws at us, we'll be better prepared. So
that's right.
Shawn, thank you very, very much. Again, this has been a great podcast. I'm going to have you on again, of course. And I'm going to be on Shawn's show actually in May as well. And we're going to talk about some really, really cool things. And so what's happening is things are changing so rapidly. We don't even know what we're going to talk about, but because of COVID-19, but it's going to be good. We know it's going to be really, really good.
We always find something.
We always find something. And so, Shawn, thanks for being a great brother. Thanks for being a great guest today. Again, you're here with Dr. Shawn Needham on Secrets of Success podcast, where the theme is never be outworked. And I had the great pleasure of interviewing my brother today. Go to my website, drsneedham.com. Find out more information about all the YouTube videos that we have there. Follow me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. And of course, we'll see you next time on the podcast. Thanks again, Shawn, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.